The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back. It is great to be with you. I'm still on the road, and I'm going to go ahead and let it be known, folks. Today is my 25th birthday. Congratulations to me. All right, maybe not 25th. Maybe it's like 25/26. I don't know, something like that. I don't know, but anyway, I'm getting more wise every year. And that's all I want to say about it. But yeah, it's my birthday, so say what you will. It is a great day to have a birthday. Let's see, some people that share my birthday. The Polita Diva, who you may hear on this show sometimes. Love her. She's amazing, beautiful, and as intelligent as anyone I know. It's her birthday, and we, of course, have to wish the real Polita Diva a happy birthday. She's not going to get it on Twitter because she got blocked on Twitter, unfortunately. But she is amazing and means the world to me. And let's see, who else? Ivanka Trump. Her birthday is today. The Fonz, Henry Winkler. You ever notice when you grow up and then you look back at stuff? Like I was talking to somebody the other day about Star Wars. Star Wars, now looking back at it as an adult, is probably one of the most crappy movies I've ever seen. It's like it's the worst acting. It's the worst editing. The special effects are horrible. But when I was a kid, man, it was amazing, right? Well, the Fonz, Henry Winkler, whose birthday is today, when I look back on that show, he's kind of a weirdo. I mean, more a dude who lives upstairs from somebody's garage. He rents a room. I don't know how old he was supposed to be, but he wears a leather jacket, rides around on a bike that's not really that great of a motorcycle, and goes around sticking his thumbs up in the air saying, hey, I mean, would you ever hang out with somebody like that? He was like a short Kramer is what he really was, but somehow, I don't know, they have some incredible ways of making these people into icons. But when you look back on it now after you're an adult, you know, the people I know that are cool are badass. And when you see them, there's something about them, man. They are successful. They walk in a room and they capture the attention just by who they are, not by how loud they are. People who are warriors or successful. Wally Graham, two people come to mind when I think about really cool people. Dr. Wally Graham, who was a mentor of mine, he passed away in 2018, and he was just an amazing, amazing man. That guy he was one of the most intelligent people I've ever known, and in the about 8 years that I knew him, affected my life dramatically. That's a cool person. Hey, that's a cool guy. Or Ron Bellin. Ron Bellin also died in January of 2019, right around the time that SHOT Show was going on. And I remember talking to him, and then his death really impacted me because we were the same age, although I never knew Ron was the same age as me. I always thought he was older than me, actually, because he was a mentor as well. And he was the guy that gave me my PT test to go into the SEAL teams. That's what's crazy about the whole thing. And then he became a mentor even after we were out of the teams. And, but he was larger than life. The guy was like, I don't know how tall Ron was, like 6'5". He had a Magnum PI mustache, and he was just a warrior. This guy was a warrior. After he got out of the SEAL teams, he had cancer in one of his eyes, so he had to have an eye patch. But man, all it did was add to the mystery of who this guy was. And he had a TV show called Reaper Outdoors Survive the Hunt that was on the Pursuit channel. And that's what I call awesome, cool. Hey, he would never say that, right? He would never say something stupid like that. But he was just larger than life. Ron Bellin walked into a room and you knew that dude was somebody. And but it's funny when we look back on this stuff, and I know I was talking about people whose birthday it is today. Johnny Carson, his birthday was on the 30th of October. So a lot of interesting people whose birthday is today. It's an interesting day to be born, quite frankly, the day before Halloween. So people are already excited on the 30th, October 30th. You're not quite that, born on that evil, dark day or spook day, but you're kind of you're a little on the edge. You're rough. I've been called rough recently. I like it. I like being called rough. And so being born on the day before Halloween, you got to celebrate your birthday the day before, and then you got to celebrate your birthday the next day. I mean, having candy and stuff, it was great. Cake one day, candy the next, get to dress up. So, yeah, it's been interesting, my birthday, having it right before Halloween. My father, I don't think I've ever told this story. This fact. My father was born on Thanksgiving, and he passed away on Christmas Day. How crazy is that? The odds of that happening are pretty amazing. Very short life, 41 years old, and is a good example of how you can fail your entire life and teach more people through your death than you ever would through your life. That's really the significance of my dad's death. You want to leave a legacy in this world, have a lasting impact through your death. And I'll tell you just real quick, the story about that has nothing to do with the news, but it's pretty interesting. He had an IQ of over 160, but he was spoiled by his dad, which is a terrible thing to spoil somebody who is that intelligent. But the only worst thing you can do to somebody that intelligent is to verbally abuse them. So his mom verbally abused him growing up, always telling him he was worth nothing, he could be nothing. Meantime, his father, because they ended up getting divorced, and his father spoiled him. So he tormented with this his entire life, and ended up being a person who could never stick with something. He could do anything, but would never stick with it. He could, paint. He could take a car apart with no instructions, take it completely apart, put it back together. I'm talking every single part, engine, everything. Could weld. He could do whatever he wanted. But overall, and this is one thing that stuck with me my entire life, is that you could be a genius and be a failure. Or you could be kind of smart, or not even really smart. You could just be somebody who has an incredible work ethic, who's caring, who's good to be around, and who works hard. And you can do amazing things. Sometimes being really smart is a catch-22. Same thing, I always tell people this, I've living in New York, I grew up in the South in Arkansas. I didn't know any models when I grew up, but, having lived in New York City and met models, female and male, with a building where I lived in New York when I lived in Manhattan up until this year. I lived there for 15 years. The same 500 square foot apartment for 15 years. I think I told this before. When I left, I was paying $23.25 a month for 500 square feet. That's New York. But there were all kinds of models and people who were actors in the soap operas and things like that. And they lived in my building, and I knew a lot of them. And great people, but I'm telling you, really beautiful people or really successful people or really smart people. It's a catch-22 a lot of the times. You may be one of the most beautiful people out there, but nobody takes you seriously. Maybe you want to do serious stuff, but nobody takes you seriously. Or maybe you just get used because you're beautiful. I know that these sound like first world problems, and they are in a lot of ways, but the reality is pain and suffering is relevant to the person and the moment and time and space that they're at. People always ask me, which is harder, Ranger School or SEAL training? And I say they're both hard. One SEAL training was definitely harder for a longer period of time. When it comes to the physical aspects of it and the mental aspect of it, and it lasts I was there for 10 months, versus Ranger School, which is 62 days. But Ranger School is a different kind of tough. You're really performing in a leadership capacity while you're starving and not getting any sleep. You're sleeping an average of 2 hours a day. You're eating one meal a day for 62 days. sometimes we're out in the field for 2 weeks at a time and never took a shower, wore the same clothes. And so the pain while you're in it, when I'm in Ranger School, it was just as painful as when I was in SEAL training. It's just that SEAL training was painful for a lot longer. Ranger School was 62 days straight. SEAL training was 10 months straight, but we had weekends off a lot of the time. Sometimes we didn't, but most of the time we did. And trust me, you wanted to sleep and eat. That's about all you thought about, and just relax. Every Sunday when I was in Buds, by myself, sometimes with my buddy Scott, but most of the time by myself, I'd go get a haircut and have my face shaved. It was great going to the barber after being brutalized for a week. And they put the hot towels on you and shave your face. Everything was great. And then I would go to this burrito bar that was down in, I'm trying to think of the name of the beach. Was it Ocean Beach? It was one of the beaches in San Diego. And I would go down there and have a huge breakfast burrito. I think it was gigantic. I mean, I looked like I had a distended gut at the end of eating that burrito. But I would sit there and I'd sit on the beach and relax, enjoy the sun, and then I would go back and get ready to be brutalized on Monday. So there were moments where it was nice, where I'd actually use that moment to escape. But overall, SEAL training sucked every day that you were there to an extreme that it's unhumanly imaginable. But so was Ranger School in its own way. So that, I'm going all over the place with this stuff today, but when you look at the problems that some of these people have that are, beautiful people kill themselves, and you're like, what are rich people kill themselves? And so do poor people, so do, I don't want to say anybody's ugly, but, people feel left out because they feel like, oh, I'm not beautiful enough. But here's the reality of all this stuff is that you can, beauty is, they say is in the eye of the beholder, but I'm here to tell you, you can walk in a room and by modeling standards be not attractive, and you can still be a badass who people desire to be around or date or get married to. It really, you, the person, how big of a person you are, how beautiful of a person you are. And when you walk in somewhere and you are accomplished, that's the other thing. Are you prolific? Somebody called me prolific one time. One of the greatest compliments I've ever had. And, when I walk into a room, I have accomplishments behind me. And that's, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. More to come on that. Actually, I went through, and I'll talk about that in a later show, maybe next week. But I went through some of my old records and stuff that I had stored away today, and it was pretty interesting looking at my high school and college records. Pretty interesting. And I suggest that everybody, if you get a chance to reflect on this stuff and sit down every now and then. I didn't start out to talk about this stuff on the show today, but sometimes I roll with it, and it's very interesting. If you go back and you look at who you were and who you are now, you're going to see what you've done. You're going to see your accomplishments or your failures. Don't be afraid to write that stuff down, or at least acknowledge it, because then you may feel like a complete failure. Many of you listen to this may think to yourself, I've done nothing in my life that's amounted to anything. But you go back and look at who you were as a child and who you are now, and you look at the times when you have struggled to maintain and you overcame it, or you succeeded and you didn't feel like it was anything, or you climbed a mountain only to find out that it's just simply a landing to the next staircase. I've had that happen more times than I can ever count. I have, for everything I succeeded in life, I tried a minimum of 3 times. Because I'm not that smart, I'm not that talented, I'm not that athletic, but I never let those things stand in my way. I needed to be Olympic caliber athlete to be in SEAL training. I became Olympic caliber athlete. I needed to make it through officer candidate school. I had to make it through college. I had to learn how to study. I had to study harder. In fact, that was one of my biggest problems when going through college, definitely high school, was that nobody ever taught me how to study. They never taught me how to take a test. Not until Chris Butler in officer candidate school taught me how to study. I've told that story on here before. It's amazing what he taught me and how simple it really is. Anyway, I digress all over the place today. the fact is, and I got on this conversation, or got on this topic today because of the Fonz, which is interesting because I wasn't saying he was that cool. But I guess, you know what? It made me think. It made me talk about being cool, about being recognized, and all these things that we have going on in our life. The fact is, sometimes I guess maybe you do need to throw your thumbs up in there and say, hey, no, don't do that. Don't do that at all, because that just looks horrible. But maybe sometimes you need to realize you're a lot cooler than you think. Maybe you're having a terrible, hard time in life, and things just don't seem as though they've ever worked out. What's interesting about that is when you look back on those things and you look where you are now, maybe you're in another trial right now or tribulation in your life. The fact is you made it through all those other things. Not only you made it, but you're still thriving. That right there is why you're here on this earth. You're not here to be the most beautiful, the most successful, the most talented, the richest. All those things stay here when you leave. You're really here to fail and keep going and learn from that. That is what it's all about. In fact, if you're not going through something in your life, you're either not living and you're like avoiding everything, which in and of itself is a big failure, but that's the wrong kind of failure. Or you're just not, or you are at a point in your life where you're getting ready for another challenge. But that's what life is all about. That's what it's all about. And, you know, going through those records today, and looking at the way I have progressed and the things that I've done, which not all of them was I the best in, but there's basically nothing I've ever said that I want to do that I didn't do. Case in point. And this is what I recommend all young people do. And even if you're, you know, my age, 25, 26, you should try this as well, because it may change throughout your life. When I believe I was in college when I did. No, it was before college, actually. It was in high school, the end of high school. I wrote I took a piece of paper. Actually, no, I go back. It was I left high school, I graduated high school in 87. In 88, I skipped a semester, and then I started college at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. I don't know how I got in there. I need to find out how I got in there and kiss them and give them a hug and buy them dinner, because with my grade point average, I have no idea how I got into college, to be honest with you. It was horrible. I don't know if I had learning disability or if I just didn't know how to study. I was also a dreamer. But anyway, my first semester in college, I took a piece of paper and I wrote now, or present time, and death on the other end of the paper. And I wrote this line that went from present to death. And on that timeline, I wrote down the things that I wanted to do before I died. And there wasn't a lot of those things. I wanted to be a springboard diver. I loved watching springboard diving in the Olympics. You know, that's when I was growing up very poor, and that's all we had. It was just a small TV, and that's the one thing I loved to watch was springboard diving. And Greg Lougain, it's amazing what these people could do. And I grew up on the Buffalo River. I grew up on Bull Shoals Lake, and jumping off of bluffs into the water, and Water Creek in Yellville, Arkansas, and all these different places where there were bluffs and I could dive and do all this stuff. And so I wanted to be a springboard diver. I wanted to be the first one in my family to go to college, and I wanted to finish college. I wanted to be a police officer. But it wasn't the career I wanted. I just wanted to do it, and I wanted to be a cop for a while to get that experience and to serve in that capacity. Little did I know, I think it was the greatest job that there ever was, not really anymore now, but because of just terrible times for police officers right now. But I put on there after that, I wanted to be an officer in the Navy, go to officer candidate school, and I wanted to be a SEAL. But I didn't just want to be a SEAL. I'd read that SEALs can go through other trainings, other military branches trainings, but they can't go through SEAL training. So I wanted to go to Ranger School, because I'd read up on it, how it's a leadership course, and so I wanted to go to Ranger School and be a SEAL. I also wrote on there that I wanted to be a federal agent. I wrote on there one other thing. See, the list wasn't extremely long, but I wrote on there one other thing. That's the only thing on that list that has not come to fruition. That's the only thing. I'll leave that for now, what that other thing was. But it changed when as a young person, I was a dreamer, and I was always focused on what I wanted to do in the future. When I wrote that down, however, things drastically changed because not only did I have a dream of what I wanted to do, but when I actually put the pen to the paper, it became a reality. It physically became a reality on that piece of paper. There was a line on the paper, there were dash marks, and there were things written on that piece of paper, and that's what I wanted to be. That's what I was being called to be. Every single one of those things. And there were reasons for each one. I didn't go into those now, but there were reasons for, like, I wanted to go in the SEAL teams. When I met this guy that was a SEAL in San Diego, because I kind of left this part of the story out, I wrote that great timeline my first semester of college. I then failed my first semester of college. And then I ended up going to California, taking another semester off. Actually, it was about a year, and I went to California and became a resident out there because junior college in California was virtually free. The city college or the junior colleges, amazing system. In fact, nobody explores the junior college system. I think it'd be a great way if they do want to make, college more affordable. I think California's junior college system I don't know how it is now, but it was a great example of how you can make college affordable. The same instructors that taught at the big universities in California would go and teach classes at these junior colleges. So you were literally having the same class as somebody that was going to, one of the big University of California systems or whatever, except it was affordable. Nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever explores that. So yeah, I went to Pasadena City College, and I went down to Grossmont College in San Diego. When I was in Grossmont College, I met this guy. I can't even remember his name, quite frankly, to tell you the truth. I just met him once. He came in the gym where I was working, Being Fit Fitness Center out in San Diego, and he was huge. This guy was huge. I don't know if he was Samoan or Indian. I think he was American Indian, but he was huge, big guy. And what he said about the SEAL teams was amazing. I mean, this is before people really knew about the SEALs. I mean, this was like 91, I think, something like that, in 1991, and they weren't very popular at that point. They hadn't been made popular, and everything he said, I was like, I'm being called to this. And because I was studying, at that point in time, philosophy and religions. That's what I was going to major in college. Doesn't pay a whole lot if you major in those two things. There's not really, you could be a preacher, I guess, but I found out later on that I can study any religion on my own. And as far as philosophy goes, once you get past the spiritual type of thinking and philosophy, it gets into critical thinking. And that was like math for me. I didn't like it. It turned thinking into a process, and I don't like that. I'm a free thinker. I'm an artistic, thinker. So I ended up, because I met this guy, and at that point in time I was studying, we were in this religious class, we were studying all these different religions, and I was reading the Bible. I think it was my second time reading the Bible. And I was in the story of Job. Everything kind of came together at that point in time. And after listening to this guy, I realized that the SEALs were where I was being called to give up everything, any money I had, whatever, freedoms, not being in pain, things like that. I chose to give it up. I chose to give it up because I thought I was being called to that. That's the other thing. When I wrote that timeline down, those are things that I was called to do. I felt every single one of those things. I said, that is what I'm being called. That is what God wants me to do. And so after I met this giant of a man who was incredible, and I wish I could remember his name, and in fact, I knew his name like that day, and I don't think I ever remembered his name after that. It was kind of one of those overwhelming experiences. So the story of Job and having Job had everything taken from him. See, I grew up poor. I grew up with nothing. So when you don't have anything, you can be extremely happy. But when you have something and have it taken away, like Job did in the Bible, that's a whole different ballgame. Being poor is painful, but it's kind of you're ignorant to the painfulness. You can still find happiness in being poor if you are poor and have been poor. But if you have something, you become not poor or you become comfortable, and then that's taken away from you. That is a tragically hard thing for a human being to face. That's why, when the stock market crashed way back, I can't remember when that was, 60s, 70s, and everybody jumped out of buildings because losing everything that you have is extremely difficult on the psyche. And when I went through SEAL training, I chose that. I chose to give it all up. And I was called to give it all up. So it was a remarkable experience how all these things happened. And as I was looking through my stuff today, that was one of the things. I tried to find that piece of paper. I don't know where it is. I thought I had it somewhere. It might be, but you should try this. You should try writing down now and before you die and the things you want to do. Everything I wrote on that timeline, though, had to do with career. You may want to have a bucket list of things that you do before you die. Maybe some things you want to do for fun. Maybe some things you want to do for success. And then you seek out people who do that, and you find the way. You find everything you want to do in life you can do, but there's a process. You got to find out the process. You want to go to medical school, there's a process for how you get there, how you study, how you manage your time. I guess you can have crappy writing is one of the prerequisites for that. That's why maybe I should have been a doctor, although no. That school is not for me. These neurosurgeons that I know, like Dr. Grand and others that I know, 15 years before they even take their board. That's a commitment right there. Junior Johnson, one of the funniest quotes I ever heard. Junior Johnson, he was one of the legends of NASCAR who started NASCAR. Man, he would be rolling over in his grave right now about NASCAR. It's gone so far left. But I guess he'd gotten into some trouble and something was going on in NASCAR. So he tells this story about how he was sitting there and he was trying to make a point, and he told the guy, he said, "You see that breakfast plate that you have there? It's got your eggs and it's got your bacon on it." He said, "Well, the chicken that laid them eggs, well, she was engaged in what she was doing. But that swine, he was committed." And he was making the point that if you're going to do something, you got to commit yourself to it. Because that pig is committed to death. The chicken just laid eggs. She was just involved. She was engaged in it. And that's the way neurosurgeons are. They are not just engaged or involved in it. They're committed. And maybe that's how you need to be in life. You need to be more committed. I think, as one of the reasons why I'm probably talking about this today, now 28 minutes into this show and I haven't covered any news, probably one of the reasons is because the fact that people these days are they're not committed to freedom. They're not committed to understanding what their citizenship is all about. They're just involved in life. They're not committed to anything. And to me, it's kind of tragic when you look at it. And it's one of the reasons why our country is in the shape that it's in. I give this example all the time. Fox News is fake conservative news. I know, I've been on behind the scenes. A lot of people are liberal there, and they do whatever they can do. This is the management and the owners. The owners of Fox News, the Murdochs, they're extremely liberal. And it's so liberal that they're okay with Joe Biden being elected. I guess they're okay with everything he's done because other than Tucker Carlson, nobody's really hardly covering it on Fox News. I mean, you got the big three at night. You got Laura Ingraham, you got Sean Hannity, and you have Tucker Carlson. But it's not like that's the big story on Fox. That should be the top headline, period. They should be so focused on getting the FBI and the word out and getting the FBI involved and the DOJ and holding the DOJ to task. I don't see any headlines on Fox News or any other news agency that point out the fact nobody's investigating this. Listen, you go to Drudge Report and they literally, I didn't even click on the headline. It's so ridiculous, but they're literally promoting headlines on Drudge saying, remember, the left, one of the things that they do is whatever they do that's evil or criminal, they they would only do this if they were getting caught. But now they just outwardly come out and accuse Trump or the right of doing exactly what they're doing. For instance, they did a fake dossier. The whole dossier on Trump was fake. And that's what started the whole 4-year investigation of Russia collusion. They're still using Russian collusion for excuses for anything that they don't like or they don't agree with or whatever. They'll just use it to cause hate and contempt within the conservatives or to fire up the liberals. Russia. You look at that dossier, a guy named Christopher Steele was responsible for that dossier, along with some Russian intelligence agents that crafted it, helped him craft it, paid for by the Clintons and the Democrat Party, and given to the DOJ and the FBI by John McCain. How twisted is all of that, right? Well, now they're saying that the Hunter Biden story about the computer and all this stuff is all Russia collusion, and that it was created by a fake, some kind of intel agent whose name is Christopher something. I mean, they literally are taking exactly what they did, for fact of what they did, spinning it into a lie and accusing the right of doing that, saying that all of it's built on a conspiracy theory that came out of a fake dossier. You see, but nobody reports on this stuff. Fox News it's fake. Everything is fake. All the news is fake. You look at the celebrity outrage that Fox News is reporting about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, this is what I was actually going to talk about today. I got into this whole 30-minute thing about life in general and stuff, but I hope it leads, somewhat back to this. The fact is, this is the big story of the day. I don't know how big anybody's seeing this, but I think when combined with what Gretchen Whitmer did or is doing, how all these Democrat governors are trying to muscle the power away from the legislation, and how in many cases the Republicans are giving it to him. You look at Cuomo and the people that he's murdered, and how he's written a book like a megalomaniac. He goes out and writes a book about how successful he is, then not only blames the nursing home staff and President Trump for causing this, but he's now saying that the outrage that people are having about the retirement homes is like fake outrage. This guy is just absolutely a megalomaniac, and it shows you how dangerous these governors actually are. They're very dangerous, very dangerous. Well, this story that I saw today about, celebrities rip California's Governor Newsom over coronavirus Thanksgiving rule. I mean, the celebrities that are ripping him are the same conservative celebrities that there always is out there. And I'm glad that they're out there, but it's the same people. This has become the shtick of the conservative actors in Hollywood and television and game shows and things like that. This is how they stay relevant. I mean, listen, it's there. I'm glad that we have them on our side. I'm not going to say that I'm not. But when Fox News reports celebrities rip California Governor Newsom over coronavirus Thanksgiving rules, it's kind of a misleading headline, because people are going to think that it's liberals are ripping him, but they could easily put it on there. Conservative actors are ripping Newsom, because it's the same people all the time. It's just a conservative. There's very few, and the ones that are conservative, that they're just going to use that as a headline, basically. Well, the story behind this is actually what Governor Newsom is doing and what he's mandating. So Governor Newsom, he's come out with some new California State Department of Public Health. They have a new ban on indoor gatherings because of the coronavirus for Thanksgiving. And the guidelines announced ahead of Thanksgiving holiday define gatherings as social situations that bring together people from different households at the same time in a single space or place. It says the order requires the host of any private gathering to limit attendance to no more than 3 households and the duration to be no more than 2 hours. It gets better, okay? Hosts should ensure guests gather only outdoors and promote physical distancing. So they can only gather outdoors, according to Governor Newsom. And they promote physical distancing, frequent hand washing and sanitizing, and the use of masks or face coverings. Okay, so that's bad enough already. And stupid, right? How many times do you need to wash your hands? Once you're there, you wash your hands. You could take a whole shower if you wanted to really do it right. Have people bring an extra set of clothes that they haven't worn when they get there. Take the clothes off they were wearing. Take a shower. Put on some new clothes. What's the worry? Unless they are physically ill and showing signs of it, or been around somebody who's had the coronavirus, probably not going to get it. So it gets even better. In addition, I want you all to listen to this very closely. Okay, this is a governor that is telling people what they can do behind closed doors. In addition, singing, chanting, and shouting are strongly discouraged and should be avoided, according to Governor Newsom. Now, this is just ridiculous folly. This is a fool's mandate. But what's important about it? Well, it falls right in line with what all the other Democrat governors are doing. And in an environment where there are conservatives, they just don't really have a voice. But the big thing is this, okay? This nonsense is being allowed to happen. I was having a conversation with somebody recently and was talking about what could actually happen. Right? What could actually happen over the next month or over the next week or 6 months or what have you, and what the speed at which it's going to happen. Well, I don't know the speed. I'll be honest with you. I don't know the speed at which this is going to happen. I do think next week we could potentially have some big events going on, much like happened in Portland or Minneapolis or anywhere these riots have been occurring for various reasons. You could have the same type of destructive force. Remember, these leftists aren't all omnipotent. They're not everywhere. They're not going to be able to muster the numbers like they would. So it might be many of the same cities that are going to be suffering. But I will say that the cities are going to become war zones once. I think this is what the facts point towards. I'm looking at this from an investigative standpoint, not a conspiracy theorist person or anything like that. Not trying to warmonger or anything like that. But I do believe, especially if Trump wins, then you're going to see many cities turn into war zones, quite frankly. Right now, if you want to go into New York and you want to have a car rally, they were going to do a car rally this weekend, and they got denied by the NYPD because last weekend Jewish people for Trump had a rally, and they got the crap beat out of them. And the reason this is able to occur is because cities are predominantly more liberal, and the big cities are where the money, the people, and the process is already established to riot. Yes, it takes money to riot. Those people have to have – a lot of these people are trained, and the people that aren't rioting that are trained, there's somebody there that's trained that's leading them, goading them along, and organizing them. The left has been very good at this. They learned through years of leftist rioting and stuff from all over the world. I mean, remember, this is not a homegrown, United States-grown movement. Socialism, communism, Marxism is not homegrown in the United States. This is a foreign idea that has invaded our soil. So when I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about what could happen, I think that the potential is that these cities will become war zones. Definitely if the president wins, stuff's going to happen. If he doesn't win, it could still happen. And then Joe Biden and the rest of them, heaven help us if Joe Biden wins, if the left wins the Senate and the left wins Congress. I mean, really the only person that you're going to have standing in the middle of anything occurring is the Supreme Court. Because at this point we have 5-4, 5 conservative justices and 4 liberals, although John Roberts kind of sways back and forth. Well, I wouldn't say even sways back and forth. I mean, the reality is we're still going to have kind of a split court because John Roberts is a fake global leftist, I believe. So he's definitely not a constitutionalist. The majority of the Supreme Court are not constitutionalists. They don't know or go by or even understand the Constitution. Hard to believe, but it's true. It's true. So heaven help us if we lose all three, the Senate, the Congress, and the presidency. We're going to war. We're going to war if that happens. Trust me. So the cities will become war zones. That's first and foremost. The rural areas will be compromised, and leftist leaders will attempt to use the justice system. This is what I believe is going to happen in the areas that aren't the cities. That these leftist sheriffs and leftist mayors and leftist attorney generals, they will attempt to use the justice system where they can't wage war, like in cities, where in the rural areas where it's too sparse, people are spread out, they're going to try to use the justice system. So any type of patriotic uprising will be crushed through the justice system. Those people will be targeted and arrested. The city could be burning down. The cops aren't going to target them. They're going to target the patriots. And they will use media and social media in ways that you haven't even seen yet. I can guarantee you that's going to happen regardless. You are going to become, you might as well get ready right now, folks. If I was you, and I'm going to repeat this in the show, if I was you, I would start going on all your social media and direct messaging all the people that really mean something to you, people that you don't want to lose track with, and make sure that they have your phone number or a way to contact you, because you're not going to be able to rely on social media after January 3rd if Trump wins. And quite frankly, I think after the election, things are going to change on social media. As I showed you in yesterday's show, nothing is changing this week, probably not at all, period, about the way Twitter, Facebook, Google, and all these different tech companies, the way they work. That's why I keep pointing out connectzing.com, and you got to go there and join it. I'm not going to go through a long commercial today, but it's true. You got to go join Connect Zing. I can guarantee you that social media platform will not go down. Right now it's still being formulated, but you can join and use it, but it's only going to get better. But the important thing is it's not going to go down. Drago and myself and Drago's wife, Rachel, we are not going to allow Connect Zing to go down because it is not a social media platform that's owned by the left. It's owned by us, the patriots. Free speech. People can be left and be on there. It's free speech. But the fact is, it's not going to go down. So I would strongly recommend that you start talking to people and suggesting that they at least get an account on Connect Zing. At least just have it. Even if you're not going to use it, have it right now. And then once this stuff starts changing, you'll be able to at least have a place to gather, because I guarantee you, folks, I suffered from this last week or 2 weeks ago on Facebook and on Instagram. On Instagram, I had 10,000 followers and a loyal following. Luckily, many of those people follow me on other platforms. But my Instagram is gone. I don't know if they're going to give it back to me after November. At first it said 30 days suspension. Then the whole thing just went away, just vanished for nothing. I didn't do anything, just boom, gone. So all those people that I knew, they're gone. Many of those people didn't follow me on other platforms. So I have no way of ever contacting those people again. And I suggest that on your social media platforms, you pick out the people that are most important, or just start putting up on there. Go to Connect Zing, get an account, and use that as your secondary account right now. And then eventually use that as your primary account. But at least have it as a backup, because things are going to change. I can guarantee it. Mark my word on this. That is going to be one thing that changes. You know, and a lot of people think that the liberals are just, they're nothing. They can't really do a whole lot. They're limited in this and that. Listen, they own, trust me, if they shut down Facebook and Twitter to a point where you can't communicate, or if you say the wrong thing, you're gone. Because if they got money from Soros or whoever else, and they got funded, they have no problem kicking you people off. Conservatives, Christians, whatever, anybody that doesn't agree with them. And you may think that they're just liberals and this, but they own communication. They own, and it's not just social media, the phone companies as well. Cable companies, they own that. News companies, they own all of them, with the exception of One American News and Newsmax. But Newsmax is starting to move towards the middle. I don't know where they're going with this, but they own it. They own politics, because even people on the right can't be trusted, and the ones that can't stand against. They won't do anything to stand against them because they don't want to lose their jobs, or they don't want to. I don't know what they want, to tell you the truth. But here's the thing: this is the most important thing that you have to remember. The left is highly organized, and you'd be surprised, folks, that a group that is organized and small can do ultimate damage and ultimately win against a larger group. I mean, the SEALs, that's what we perfected. A smaller group being able to decimate a larger, more lethal enemy. Well, lethal, I say, by they have more weapons, but they're not organized. If the larger unit's not organized, they can have all the numbers that they want. If the smaller unit is organized and understands what they need to do against, and they understand their enemy, they're going to be the victor in the whole thing. Look at Sierra Leone, and there was a company called Executive Outcomes, and they took 300 people and killed over 10,000 and defeated Sierra Leone, basically, and those guys ended up getting put in jail, but ultimately it was a complete success, what they did, other than getting put in jail. The guys who ran the Executive Outcomes. But the fact is, they took competent individuals, several hundred competent individuals, and they conquered a nation's brutal regime. So the fact is, the left is far more organized, far more ready. They've already proven they've been rioting. I don't know if you realize this. They've been rioting since June, since May, actually. They've been practicing. They've been working it up. Look at the stuff that they've done. Look how many people they've killed. Look how many police officers have been injured. No longer. Look how many cops have left the job because of the left. The rest of the people in this country haven't done anything. You have your rallies. We wave our flags. You know what happens when we do that? Listen, I'm glad that people are getting out and they're meeting each other and they're doing things. I've spoken at a lot of these rallies. But the fact is, it doesn't do anything to deter the left. Meanwhile, it's not like what you're saying is adding cops to the force. It's not. The left is, listen, admit it. Admit it right now so you know it. The left is stronger than the right. Until the right gets organized, I don't care how many guns you have. 5 of you are not going to defeat the left. 100 of you are not going to defeat the left. Organized groups that understand how the other group is working, that takes communication, that takes actual plans of action that are shared. We haven't done any of that. Only the left has done that. Only the left is funded. I don't see any conservative billionaires out there making sure that militias are funded, making sure that they're equipped, making sure that they're lethal in their training. I haven't seen one billionaire doing that. None. I haven't seen billionaires out there ensuring that ham radios are up around the nation for conservative groups. Nobody's doing that. There's no plan for that. Internet goes down. Phones go down. Somebody turns electricity off in the city. There's no plan. You know who has a plan? The left. So just remember that. You may say all you want. Oh, Texas is a perfect example. This is Texas. They're never going to take our guns away. Guess what? Texas is purple right now. It's not even red anymore. It doesn't matter how many gun-toting conservative badasses you have. If they don't go to the polls over a period of time, and leftists come from California, wherever else, and they get themselves in positions in government, they get themselves into positions in the school boards, they get themselves in positions as sheriffs or attorney generals or mayors, whatever, they're the ones who are going to take your guns away. they're the ones who are going to take your rights away. Oh, well, they're not going to take my guns away. I'll stand up and fight. Well, here's the other thing. All right, everybody thinks they're a patriot warrior until it's time to be a patriot warrior. You see, here's the thing about being a patriot and a warrior is that your life may be the one that's lost so that others live, so that others may have freedom. And most people in a free country are not willing to give up their life because they're free. They're not going to give up their life. They'll say to talk a big game, but when it comes time for push and shove, they're not going to do it. They're not going to stand up. And that's a position that we're in right now. You know, I always say that a smaller organized force, as the SEALs always prove, can defeat a much larger unorganized force. While we've been out having rallies, the conservatives have been having rallies for the president, rallies for freedom, rallies for police, the left has been waging war and rehearsing for a larger war in many of the cities around this country. I don't know if you realize that. While we celebrate, they prepare. And what's happened now is the right is not organized at all. And the left, whether they have the most guns or not, they're definitely more organized. Think about that and get prepared. Start to organize now. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here. Have a great weekend, folks.